Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for the Expanse Season 3, Episode 1, Fight or Flight. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of the Expanse. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for the Expanse up to Season 3, Episode 1. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. However, this video will not feature spoilers from the novel, so if you haven't read the books, you are free from spoilers. However, I will have a spoiler section for those who have read the novels at the end of the video, but I will give a proper spoiler warning before doing so. So this was a pretty strong start to the season, although I would say this was mostly a setup episode, which is a tad disappointing seeing how strong the 2-episode premiere for Season 2 was, but then again, Season 3 will most likely be building to a strong story, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I think this episode did a damn good job of setting the stage for that. On the Avasarala storyline, this episode deals mostly with wrapping up the storyline from the Season 2 finale, so in that way it felt like a cliffhanger resolution or direct continuation of that storyline, which was a bit surprising as I thought it would actually be completed in the Season 2 finale, but we got more of it here. And the Rocinante storyline did deal mostly with the fallout of Naomi's revelation that she gave Fred Johnson the proto-molecule, but this storyline felt more self-contained to this episode as it was the Rocinante crew, which had become a family, basically preparing to disband, and I thought that was handled nicely. So the episode begins with the war room scene on Earth, but this one is different from the other ones we got before because Avasarala isn't there because she's of course running for her life on Jules Pierre Mal's yacht. However, with these scenes we see Aaron White, who no longer has the check of Avasarala nor the check of Admiral Souther, who quit in protest at the start of Season 2. He's now free to manipulate the Secretary General into going to war. Now in the novels, Avasarala referred to the Secretary General as the bobblehead, as he had no real strong independent thought of his own and would just basically go in the direction that his advisors pointed to, and I feel the show is being true to that portrayal of him, as even though he's resistance and puts up the pretense of speaking his own mind, he's ultimately pretty easy for Aaron White to manipulate, and so does go to full measure of officially declaring war against Mars. And of course the big irony here is that Aaron White was the one who fired first, but he's claiming that Mars did. So Aaron White was ready to be thrown to the wolves and confess to his collusion with Jules Pierre Mal in Season 2, but in the end changed his mind, killed the Martian ambassador, making it look like a heart attack, and then destroyed the Martian ship meant to take control of the proto-molecule, and then strong-armed Jules Pierre Mal into working with him again. So here he continues this deceptive path where he learns that Avasarala is in fact still alive. The first thing he does is send the ship to just destroy Jules Pierre Mal. And the second thing is to discredit Avasarala to the Secretary General, where he pens pretty much everything that he did on her. And Secretary General Gillis, being the bobblehead that he is, just buys it hook, line, and sinker. He orders that Avasarala be apprehended, but of course Aaron White has no intention of letting that happen. He wants her dead because she of course would accuse him of being the traitor. He's trying to cover his tracks in that eventuality, but still that would be a headache for him he'd rather avoid. So this storyline is a bit frustrating for me, but I should clarify what I mean by that. I don't mean it's not good, on the contrary, it's very good. In fact, this makes total and complete sense for Aaron Wright's character, as this would be his next move. But what I mean is that it's frustrating in the sense because he's such an asshole, and it's frustrating when the right people like Gillis get fed lies and believe that the good guy is actually a bad guy. It's kind of like hating Joffrey on Game of Thrones and wanting him to die. That's the purpose that he's supposed to serve, and I think we're supposed to hate Aaron Wright for the huge a-hole that he is, and I really want to see Gillis learn the truth of Avasarala's name being cleared, so in that way I think it's a very effective storyline. So going to the Avasarala storyline, we continue right where we left off in the Season 2 finale, where Draper acquired her Martian battlesuit and used it to rescue Avasarala and Kotir from Mal's goons. But they're still not out of danger yet, as his goons still have control of the ship, and Kotir is still shot, so still seriously injured, and we see Avasarala tending to those wounds. So we see Draper give Avasarala a gun as she goes out to look for a way out, and this scene was great. Absolutely love seeing Avasarala having to defend herself with a gun, which is something she totally isn't prepared for. In fact, this whole episode we see Avasarala out of her element. She's a badass politician who's amazing at getting information out of people and manipulating people to get what she wants, but she's not good in actual combat situations or space travel, so it's great to see her outside of her comfort zone. However, Bobby Draper's right in her comfort zone, has the battle situations in space is what she's trained for. So we get the return of the tech, which I wasn't expecting to see, as Draper enlists his help, and I love the banter we get between them. I don't think that it was the writer's initial intention in the finale to have this character return, as why have him hide in the locker? And plus that seems him pretty self-contained, so it seems to me they decided to bring him back when writing this episode, and I don't necessarily disagree with that decision because I think it adds to the story here. And on the note of seeing Avasarala out of her comfort zone, we see her shoot at Bobby when she returns, not realizing that it's her, which just further demonstrates how out of her element that she is. And plus, that was a funny scene where Bobby was just like, great job. So then they take over the bridge of the ship, but the flight crew tricks them and disables Bobby's suit. I personally didn't like the fact that Bobby was tricked like this because she's an experienced soldier, so should be prepared for something like this. But I do like how Kotiar was more prepared and was able to just take those guys out instantly. That was a nice touch. So then Aaron Wright fires missiles at the ship, which makes a lot of sense. In fact, Kotar even said that he'd do the same in his position, which I think was a nice touch. And he remembers that Mal's goons had said that Mal's daughter's racing ship was docked on board the ship, so they make a run for it in order to escape. But before they go, Avasarala forces the tech to retrieve Aaron Wright's message that proves that he's a traitor. This, I think, is in total keeping with Avasarala's character, who is ever the political-minded person. She needs her bargaining chip and her advantage, and without it, her life isn't really important to her, which I like. And I absolutely love the acting in the scene when Draper threatens to carry her against her will, but Avasarala is just like, just you try it. An empty threat to be sure, but totally within Avasarala's character, and ultimately, even though it puts all of their lives at risk, Draper and Kotiar can't help but defer to her. But here we get the kind of Star Trek cliche where Scotty says it will take 8 hours to repair the engines, and Kirk says you have 4. In fact, this is even worse because the text says that it could take hours to find the message, and yet he manages to do it in less than 10 minutes, which I find a bit silly and fake stakes, but whatever. Anyway, they get the message and they get to the racing ship to find only 2 seats for 2 people, so Kotiar orders Draper to take Avasarala to safety, where he and the tech will go to the drop ship and try to escape on that. But the door to the hangar is locked, so Draper has to take a spacewalk to go out and try to walk around the yacht to get to the hangar bay from the outside. This scene did seem pretty unnecessary and just there to add tension to the episode, but that being said, it did add tension, as it was an intense scene with great special effects, so I can't really complain about this at all. So they get to the ship, the Razorback, and it's great to finally see the ship after hearing it mentioned a lot in season 1 when Miller was investigating Julie Mal. In fact, we even see pictures of Julie around the ship, which makes sense and is a nice visual callback to the mentions of Julie Mal. And Avasarala further demonstrates how out of her element she is when she fights back against Bobby, who asks her to take off her earrings, but then Bobby explains that at this speed they'll be flying, they'll rip her face off. And then we see both ships narrowly escape in the yacht before it explodes, and I'm pretty sure Kotiar will get away safely, not because I read the books, because this storyline is so incredibly changed from the novels it gives no indication of that whatsoever, but from watching the trailer, because we see Kotiar safely recovering in the trailer, plus I would think so anyway because he's too interesting of a character to be killed off in such a way. So now let me get into the storyline with Fred Johnson. Speaking of something that wasn't in the books at all and a total invention of the show, we see Johnson send a message to Dawes telling him he has a protomolecule and asking if they can come together because he has the scientists who can unlock the protomolecule. And again, I have no idea where they're going with the storyline because nothing like this happened in the novel, so I'm just as in the dark as those who haven't read the books. But anyway, we see more of Drummer, who wasn't in the novels at this stage in the story, but I saw an interview with one of the authors of the novels and one of the showrunners who explained that they were so impressed with the actress who played Drummer They decided to expand her role in this season, which I totally and completely agree with, as she is a very compelling character. In this episode, we learn more about how she specifically chose Fred Johnson because she believed him, and specifically avoided Dawes because she can see him for the self-serving opportunist that he is. And she's so angry at Johnson for trying to work with Dawes when Dawes inspired the men that almost killed her. But Johnson insists that he needs her and sends her on a mission to recover the Nauvoo so it can be retrofitted into a warship to serve the belt. And it's interesting that Johnson has a vision of united OPA that is more of a nation rather than divided factions. Drummer doesn't seem to agree and thinks it's a bit unrealistic, but agrees to go on the mission all the same. So as I said, I'm glad they gave us more Drummer, and I'm interested to see more of where they're going to take the storyline. So finally, let me get to the Rocinante, and yes, I'm going to keep calling it the Rocinante, even though they officially changed the name to something else. As I mentioned earlier, this was the crew at its most fractured, where the family dynamic of the crew is falling apart, and to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of that, as I get into this a lot in my book-to-show comparison videos. In the novels, the Rossi crew never really squabble amongst themselves like they did in the show, and frankly, I prefer that dynamic. I praise Season 2 because it was pretty much dropping that feud between Amos and Holden, which I really didn't like. So to see the crew pretty much resign to give up the Rocinante and go their separate ways is a bit disappointing to me. That being said, it does make a lot of sense for the story that they present in the show, where they find out Naomi completely betrayed their trust and made a vital decision by herself against the wishes of the crew, and the fact that a Mars and Earth war means there's no safe place for the Rocinante and absolutely everyone will be gunning for them. Also, I like how this revelation specifically affected Holden and Naomi's relationship, as before, Holden said there was nothing Naomi could say to change the way he feels about her in this situation is be careful what you say, because we see he was wrong and apparently there is. It was great seeing the interactions between them as Naomi tried to talk normally to Holden, who was pretty much non-responsive. It was absolutely great to see the scene where Holden smashes the coffee machine. It really illustrates his total frustration over the whole thing and how he's frustrated that his whole family is coming apart. We also get a very touching scene with Alex as he finally sends a message to his estranged family, because we see hints of them through pictures ever since season 1, and the fact that it took him this long really speaks to how neglectful of a father he is. But this message makes it perfectly clear that he does care about them and regrets that he chooses to be away from them and wants them to be safe. So that was a nice touch in developing Alex's character. And then we get a great interaction between Prax and Holden as Prax tries to console Holden about his current issues with Naomi, but Holden ends up trying to comfort him and assure him that the protomolecule monster he killed wasn't his daughter. But we see Prax has resigned himself to the fact that he will probably never know and will never see his daughter again. And I love the effect that this has on Holden as he starts to realize what's really important. So then we get the scene that to me really saved this episode and made the Rocinante storyline totally worthwhile, where Holden reveals that the incident with the ship coming apart on Venus happened at the exact same time that they killed the protomolecule monster, and at the exact same time that all this happened, there was also a spike coming from the abandoned helium factory owned by Jules Pierre Mao on Io, meaning they now know where the lab is where they created the protomolecule monster. So if there's any hope in finding Prax's daughter, it would be there. And this was such an amazing scene. I love how Holden was just like, I never gave a shit about your daughter, I was just using you for a guide. And then he makes it clear that he doesn't care about the protomolecule anymore or what Naomi did, but he feels he owes it to Prax to try to find his daughter. And this was such a touching scene as Holden basically realizes that he needs to let go of his anger and obsession and instead tries to do right by someone who suffered rather than simply using him. And this, of course, inspired Amos and Alex to go along with him, and that was absolutely great, so I really loved this scene. So my rating for Fight or Flight out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. The Avasarala storyline was suspenseful, the Fred Johnson storyline was intriguing, the Aaron Wright storyline was frustrating but in all the right ways, and the Rocinante storyline was kind of dull but absolutely saved by that ending where Holden promises to find Prax's daughter against all odds, which was all really inspiring. But again, this is mostly a setup episode, but a very good one. So that's it for my spoiler-free section of this video. So if you haven't read the novels, you will want to turn out now. thanks so much for watching, and be sure to join me and Afghan Topko for a live discussion tomorrow night, Friday night in the US, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific time, which for me will be Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. here in New Zealand, for a live discussion about episode 1 of season 3. Link for this will be in the description below. I will be doing these live videos weekly after every episode of The Expanse, with rotating guests and sometimes even by myself if I have to. But this week we'll be joined by Afghan Topko. Also be sure to check out my channel, as I do many other videos and other shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek Babylon 5, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching. But for those of you who have read the books, you can keep watching for my brief spoiler section, which begins now. So the big thing I have to talk about with spoilers is the little blue batch of protomolecule we see overlooked on the Rosinante, because us book readers knows exactly what this means. In fact, when I saw them cleaning up the protomolecule all over the ship, it made me think that they were going to skip the Investigator storyline, but seeing this there is the clearest indication that could possibly be that they will in fact be doing the Investigator storyline, which in fact I think is absolutely vital for book 3 and book 4. Also, I saw an episode title list online for season 3, although I can't be sure how accurate it is, but it shows one of the episodes in the mid-season is called The Investigator, so that makes it pretty clear we will get the return of Thomas Jane as Miller playing the Investigator, which I cannot wait for. As in the novels, he specifically stated he was able to appear to hold him because of a piece of the protomolecule left behind by the monster that stowed away on their ship, and that's clearly what they're foreshadowing here, so I cannot wait for that. One other thing I want to mention in regards to spoilers is the Fred Johnson contacting Dahl storyline has, of course, nothing like this happen in the novels, and we see Johnson send Drummer to get to Nauvoo, which we didn't see any specific scenes like this in the novels, but we know this is setting up for the storyline with the Behemoth, which is also vital to Book 3. But I have a theory about Dawes, and that is that he will agree to come together with Johnson and form a united belt, so like the OPA nation, because in the novels this does in fact, the OPA does unite on the Behemoth, but there are still disagreements as we see with the Ashford storyline. So my theory is that Dawes will fill in for Captain Ashford, and part of the agreement will be that he become the commander of the Behemoth, and Drummer and the new character being introduced, played by David Stratham, will fill the roles of Sam, Bull, and Pa, and that will form the basis of the mutiny storyline on the Behemoth. That would make a lot of sense to me, to make Dawes the main villain of that storyline, because he's an established villain of the show. So why introduce a new character when you can just use one that you're familiar with? And because Dawes is a totally different character in the show than he was in the book, so clearly he's not going to follow his book storyline in the show, so it's okay for him to die at the end of the book 3 material, just as Captain Ashford did, but that is just my guess. Anyway, that's all I have for the spoiler section. If you want to talk about these spoilers or any other spoilers in the comment section below, please be sure to use spoiler tags. That is, start to post but with having the word spoilers in bold, but then hit return enough times so that the text of the post is below the read more button. Since this is a spoiler free video, any post that has spoilers without using spoiler tags will have to be deleted, which I hate doing, especially if it's a post I really want to respond to. So please remember to use spoiler tags when discussing spoilers, and join us tomorrow for the live discussion, which will be entirely free from book spoilers. And thanks a lot for watching.